Okay, let's see what's going on. I just spoke with Patient Beard, and he's not able to join right now. But there might be Tia. He hasn't responded yet, but I don't know when he's available. But if there's anybody that wants to participate, you can do so. In the meantime, I just thought I might read a little bit of Genesis. I don't know if there's any extra noise going through right now, but I'll just go ahead and start reading maybe. I thought it was interesting, this passage in Genesis. So it's of course Genesis 1. In the beginning, I'm going to read from I think the Young's literal translation. So it's a literal translation, what it actually says. But it's still translated. The words used are chosen to try to best fit what it says, but it might not necessarily be the best word that's chosen, but it's a literal translation. It says, "In the beginning of God's preparing the heavens and the earth." This is a lot of discussion can be made about this, um, especially when you consider the fact that preparing the heavens and the earth is the making of time and space, which is, there is no absolute measure of time or distance in the universe. It's all relative to where you are in the universe. So if you're near a black hole, time goes by very slow. A second takes longer to pass by. So if you're measuring the speed of light, it would be a longer second, and it would be a shorter distance relative to us near a black hole. So instead of light traveling 186,000 miles in 1001, it would be light traveling 186,000 miles, a shorter 186,000 miles relative to us, and it would be 1001. Because light, the rate of time slows down. And if you're very near a black hole, it's almost as if time is stopped. It's almost as if time is stopped. It hasn't actually stopped, but as far as we are concerned, the second would be so long, 1,000. We can't even perceive any time passing by, according to what the scientists themselves say. So there is no absolute measure of time or distance in the universe, and we just have to go by what God defined as a day. So, in the beginning of God's preparing the heavens and the earth, in Exodus it says in one day. Of course, we know time is relative in reality, and with God, a day is like 1,000 years. 1,000 years is like a day, and it depends what measure of time you're going by. What measure of time, what rate of time are you going by when you say it's one day? God says it's one day. What measure of time, what rate of time is he talking about? So, and of course, he's all powerful. He can make it any rate of time for that matter. So, in the beginning of God's preparing the heavens and the earth hath existed waste and void, formless and void. So there was no particular um, you know, structure to the earth. It was probably a random structure. And darkness is on the face of the deep. So this is a very interesting point of discussion here, because here you have the earth is formless and void, and darkness is covering the surface of the earth. So, if darkness is covering the surface of the earth, that could mean that there was light elsewhere, and probably does mean that light was elsewhere. So, hold on a second, let me just looking for something here. So, yeah, so there was darkness covering the surface of the earth. It actually says surface of the deep. So, deep on the surface of the earth, there was darkness. And the Spirit of God was moving across the face of the waters, or fluttering, or hovering on the face of the waters. So there was water covering the earth's surface, and the Spirit of God was moving over the face of the water, was hovering over the face of the water. Okay, so this is important because of what he says next. And God said, "Let light be," and light is. Light is where? Okay, remember where the darkness was? Darkness was covering the surface of the earth. And where did he say light be? Was as he was hovering over the surface of the waters. So there was light on the surface of the earth. There was now light on the surface of the earth, or the surface of the waters. He said, "Let light be," and light is. And God seeth the light that is good. And the light was good, and God separated between the light and the darkness, and God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and there was evening and there was morning one day. So this is the first day counted. Of course, we know there was a fabrication of time. There's no absolute measure of time. And this is the first day counted on earth, of course. And we know the evening and the morning is the separation of light and darkness, is one rotation of the earth relative to the light of the sun. So that's rather interesting, I seem to think. Okay. Patience says, "Have fun. We can have it next week. We don't have to force it." Okay. Yeah, that's no problem. I'm just a little bit anxious to talk to somebody. It doesn't matter who it is. Because I got this thing set up. I want to see if I can get the Skype to work. Because I never had anybody click the link to call the Skype number so that I can hook it up with my OBS platform. So I just want to see if that works, or that would work. It probably does work, but I just never did it before, and I wanted to see if it works. Okay, so and let me see here. What else? We got more messages. No, we're good. Okay. Oh. says I'm live on YouTube right now in my mailbox. Okay. Sounds good. So yeah, that's an interesting thing with the creation of the world. Of course, a lot of creationists, most creationists, I would think, would say that the sun and the stars were made on Wednesday. We can also look at that. I don't think they were made on Wednesday. I think they were made when the heavens and the earth were made. And it doesn't actually say the sun and the moon was made on Wednesday. It said, let there be lights. In other words, I understand that to mean let there be lights to be seen. And then it says, and the stars were made also. And I believe that to mean not necessarily on Wednesday. And of course, time is, there's no absolute measure of time or distance in the universe. And so the when of the stars being made is not really relevant to the when of when light was seen on earth on the first day, or what the source of the light was. A lot of people say the source of the light was God. God was a light, and then he made the moon and stars and everything like that. I would tend to stay away from the supernatural kind of thing as much as possible in regard to the creation, when a lot of it can be the creation of the natural order of the planetary system and the solar system and the galaxy with the stars. There's no reason to force a supernatural event when it's not, when it doesn't have to be. Of course, every natural thing is supernatural anyway to begin with, but that's another thing. So yeah, we can go ahead and continue reading. We'll go to the Wednesday and see what happened Wednesday. And God, and of course anybody can comment in the comment section if they want to. And God said, let an expanse be in the midst of the waters. This is interesting too. So, in case there's any confusion as to what that means, it goes on to explain, and let it be separating between the waters and the waters, okay, in case there's still confusion. And God maketh the expanse, so there was an expanse, and it separated between the waters which are under the expanse and the waters which are above the expanse. And it was so. Well, how do you define waters? Yeah, it could have been water vapor, it could have been invisible water vapor, as far as that goes. And God calleth the expanse heavens, and there is evening and there is a morning, a second day. And remember, there is still only light on earth. You can't see the sun, the moon, stars yet. So maybe it could have been water vapor, and it could have been whatever, you know. And a lot of people say it was ice, but you would still have to be able to see the sun, moon, and stars on Wednesday, on the fourth day. Okay, so and God saith, let the waters under the heavens be collected into one place, and let the dry land be seen. And it was so. And God calleth the dry land earth, and to the collection of the waters he has called seas, and God seeth that it is good. And God saith, let the earth yield tender grass, herbs sowing seed, fruit trees, whose seed is in itself, making fruit after its kind on the earth, and it was so. And the earth bringeth forth tender grass, herbs sowing seed after its kind, and trees making fruit, whose seed is in itself after its kind, and God seeth it's good. And there is an evening, and there is a morning, a third day. I'm reading from the literal translation. It's a literal translation. It's not made to make sense in English. I mean, it's not in the order of the way we speak in English. It's just a literal translation. So yeah, this is interesting because it's the third day, and it's when dry land appeared, or earth appeared, and the water was collected into the oceans, the seas, and the plants were made. The grass was made, and the herbs, and probably the plant life. All the plant life was made, at least from seed, where it was began to grow. You know, there's different ways of seeing the creation. There may have been, I haven't paid too much attention, there may have been an initial creation, and then creation of life in the Garden of Eden, some people say. Then, you know, there's different ways of looking at it, or maybe it was just one creation of everything. So yeah, so we have the separation of the waters from above, the waters below. Of course, we have light on day one. We have the separation of the waters from the waters, the water above from the water below, and we have now the appearance of dry land and the seeds. And now we'll go to where's day 4? Oh, here's day 4. And God said, and this is the reason why I'm using the literal translation, to see if I can get the closest to what's actually being said. And God saith, let luminaries be in the expanse of the heavens, to make separation between day and night. Then they have been for signs, and for seasons, and for days and years, and they have been for luminaries in the expanse of the heavens, to give light upon the earth. And it was so. I don't know if it makes it any more clear. So yes, it does sort of, I guess. It basically says the same thing. And God maketh the two great luminaries. It doesn't actually say he made the sun and the moon. It said he made lights. Made two great luminaries, the great luminary to rule the day, and the small luminary and stars for the rule of the night. And of course, the moon is not actually a light source. It reflects the light, but it is a reflection. It is a luminary, a reflection of light for us. But it doesn't actually say that he made the moon or the sun. It just basically says that he made lights to appear on Wednesday, because the heavens and the earth were made on the first day. If you're going with the strict creation of the solar system on the first day. And God giveth him in the expanse of the heaven to give light upon the earth, to rule over the day and night, and to make separation between light and darkness, which was already there on the first day. And God seeth that it is good. And there is evening and there is morning, day fourth. The only difference is now that we can actually see the luminaries. We can see the lights. Whereas before we couldn't see the lights. So he made the lights to be seen on earth, because this is from the perspective of being on earth. Because the Spirit of God was moving over the surface of the water, and there was darkness covering the surface of the deep on the first, or the surface of the earth, the surface of the waters on the first day. There was darkness until there was light on the first day. And there was light to be seen, but the luminaries themselves were only seen on the fourth day. If you're going with the interpretation of a complete created solar system on the first day when he made the heavens and the earth, which is a straightforward understanding of what's being said. There's nothing extra being interpreted here. So, and then God saith, let the waters teem with teeming life, creature and fowl, let fly on earth on the face of the expanse of the heavens. Okay. So then the birds were made, the waters were made to teem the waters and the birds. So that means the penguins and the birds were made on the same day. So let the waters teem with the teeming living creature, and the fowl let them fly on earth on the face of the expanse of the heavens. And God separated the great monsters and every living creature that is creeping. Okay, the great monster would be Leviathan, would be Behemoth, which is the sauropod, and a Spinosaurus. They were made on the fifth day, because the Spinosaurus is a sea monster. Leviathan or Behemoth is also a water animal that lives in the waters, but that's another can of worms or whatever, rabbit hole. Okay, every fowl after his kind, God sees as good. And God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and the fowl, and let them multiply in the earth. And there was evening, and there was morning, day fifth. So, here we have the first time that God blessed them and said, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth, or fill the waters in the sea and the earth, and let them multiply in the earth. So that's the fifth day. And God said, let the earth bring forth a living creature after its kind, cattle and creeping thing and beast of the earth after its kind. And it was so. And God maketh the beast of the earth after its kind, and the cattle after their kind, and every creeping thing of the ground after its kind. And God seeth that it is good. So all the rest on the sixth day, all the rest of the animals were made, cattle, whatever land dinosaurs there were, creeping thing after its kind, beast of the earth, cattle, and everything, goats, sheep, everything. And God saith, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea. Okay. So to begin with, there is no higher life form existing on earth other than mankind. Mankind is the highest life form on earth, in the universe, because we are made in the image and likeness of our Maker. So there is no other higher life form other than God Himself. And over the cattle, as far as created things, over everything that creepeth on the earth, and God is not created, of course. Atheists should know that. God is not made. He didn't make. He wasn't made. And that's the whole point of anything existing, is that all power has to be from an eternal Maker. Because you can't, there's no way of making yourself, there's no way of anything appearing or anything being made without an eternal, all-powerful Maker. Hello, Christian Channel. How you doing? After its kind, and that's what we see through observational science. Exactly. We are copies of our kind, and a copy is a copy of a copy. And there is no extraneous information from any other living organism inside of us. And the same goes with every other organism. They are copies of copies of copies, and there's no extraneous information from other animals or organisms inside of them, because they are copies of their original kind. So if there is extraneous information, such as between chimps and humans, then we do not have a common ancestor with chimps. It's not complicated. A copy is a copy. There's no extraneous information. Either chimp information in humans or human information in chimps, which does exist, a lot of it. Like 30%, as much as 30% between humans and chimps is unique. And so chimps have information we don't have, and we have information that chimps don't have. It's not copied. It wasn't copied because it's not there in humans, because it wasn't copied from a common ancestor. It's not complicated. People like to make it complicated, but that's another thing. So God said, let's make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let him rule over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of heavens, and over cattle, over the earth, over every creeping thing that creepeth on earth. And God prepareth man in his image, and in the image of God He prepared him, male and female He prepared them. And God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, rule over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the heavens, over every living thing that creepeth upon the earth. God saith, lo, I have given to you every herb sowing seed which is upon the face of the earth, and every tree which is in the fruit of the tree, the sowing seed. For it to you is for food, and to every beast of the earth, and every fowl of the heavens, to the creeping things of the earth, which is the breath of life, every green herb for food. And it was so. And God seeth that He had done, and lo, very good. And there's evening and there's morning, day the sixth. Okay, I'm reading the literal translation. It's really clear here. There shouldn't be too much discussion that the plants were made for food, and that all the plants were edible. At the time of creation, all the plants were edible. What happened to the plants? Why are a lot of plants not edible anymore? Well, it's the sin, the fall of man, which cursed the earth and everything. That's the reason why not all plants are edible anymore. I mean, they are to a lot of animals, they're edible because animals are able to deal with all the poisons and everything, but everything became opportunistic and self-preserving. So, it's in the self-preservation mode. Everything is in the self-preservation mode because of the lack of resources, the lack of what's needed. Yeah, the lack of resources. So everything becomes opportunistic and is no longer able to live strictly on plant life in the natural sense. Of course, it's possible for lions to live on plant life. It's possible for everything to live on plant life. But practically speaking, it's not feasible because everything becomes opportunistic. So, and that's at the fall of man. That's when animals started eating other animals. But I think the humans continued to eat plants until after the flood. Then God said you can eat animals because the resources are even more depleted or scarce, so that in order for us to survive or live healthy, it's okay to eat animals after the flood because it's even more cursed. The ground is even less fertile than it was before at the curse when man sinned, because the earth was completely destroyed by the global flood. And of course, it seems like the air pressure, the atmosphere lost its air pressure, which lost its ability to retain the water in the air, which caused the rain, which then means that there's more radiation reaching the earth, which means that we don't live as long, and a whole bunch of factors after the flood that caused us to live only to be 100 years, like the Bible says. And Christian Sale says that God himself killed the first animal to make a covering for Adam and Eve. Yeah, that's the first animal was killed for a covering of Adam and Eve because it's a sign of the covering of Messiah, which is through the blood of Messiah. So that was the first sign, and as soon as Adam and Eve sinned, word of the provision for their sin was given to them through the seed of the woman who would crush the serpent's head. And every prophecy is based on that first prophecy. But of course, the animal skins were another prophetic event that signified it wasn't Adam and Eve that covered themselves. It was God who covered Adam and Eve himself by his provision for them. So, and of course, animal skins isn't enough to cover our sins completely. So it's a promise of the provision of Messiah who was to come. Christian Channel says, must have been very sad and traumatic for Adam and Eve to see a once happy animal cursed by their actions. Yes, in all of creation, it must have been really sad to know that you destroyed everything by your actions, by believing a lie, by wanting to know what bad information would do, wanting to know what the result of bad information or not listening to God would be. So they thought it was good, or at least they seemed to think it was good to eat, and they ate, and it destroyed everything, and it brought death to creation. So this is basically, I was going to try to have a conversation with Patient Beard and or Scientia, but I haven't had a response, at least not yet that I can see. Patient Beard said he can't do it right now. He said leave it for next week. Scientia, where is the Scientia? But anyways, if there's somebody, an atheist that wants to join, or anybody that wants to join, you can click the link provided for the Twitter. And Christian Channel says, all the way to us today, while we were yet sinners, God died for us. Amen. Yeah, the only one who could die for Adam and cover the sins of Adam is Adam. So Jesus can die for Adam because he is Adam, and yet without sin. So he is the perfect provision for Adam because he had no sin, because his Father is God. And that's the only perfect provision that there can be. There is no other provision. It has to be a perfect, complete provision, Adam for Adam. You know, skins aren't complete, animals aren't perfect. They're not equal to us. They're not the same thing as us. They're not perfect. I mean, in the sense of God. They're not in the image of God as we are. So the only perfect provision is Jesus, who is Adam, covering for Adam. That's the only perfect provision there is. So I'm probably going to just cut this off right now and wait to see if there's somebody else calls me on the Skype link. Anybody can call at any time on this link, I think, and I can probably hook them up so they can have a conversation, and I can present them on this OBS platform, probably. Christian Channel says, I should have said while we were still sinners, Messiah was afflicted, scourged, and laid down his life for us. Yeah, he took the punishment that we deserve, all the disgrace, all the abuse, everything. He took it for us, and he died for us. And Christian Channel says, have a blessed night. Likewise, have a blessed night, everyone listening. And I might be on later on tonight, and see if I can find somebody that wants to have a discussion, or atheist in particular. Okay, so God bless everyone in the knowledge of God, and I'll see you soon.